Hey guys, my name's Luke, and I just got done winning the Wild West Apex Pro Cup Championship on Folsom Lake. So Friday morning, woke up at about 5 o'clock. I live really close to the lake, so just a short drive over there. Got into the parking lot around 6 a.m. All the boats started to show up, so got to see all the friendly faces that I haven't seen for a while from the Apex Tour, which was fun. And get our boats launched. We have a morning prayer, national anthem, and then we started fishing. And so I rolled out and went over to one of my favorite spots right on the peninsula. I know a lot of the rock piles are over there, and they usually harbor some good fish, but started off that morning, caught about a 2.5, 3-pounder first thing, and then it was just a struggle the rest of the day. I caught pretty much, I think I caught one more short fish around 9 o'clock in the morning, and then the rest of the day I went with pretty much no bites until it was, I believe it was 2:50. I had to check back in at 3 o'clock, and 2:50 I caught my second keeper of the day, and so the first day I ended up with 2 keepers, which is pretty bad start for a tournament, no matter what series you're fishing, but especially the Apex group when you're fishing against some of the best guys on the West Coast. Obviously, after a 2-fish day, my head was just racing. I mean, I couldn't think of really what I did wrong. I thought that I fished, productive areas. I thought I fished the right baits, but things just didn't go my way that day. And sometimes that's how it is in tournament fishing. So I kind of just decided that I probably ran around the lake too much. I fished the North Fork, I fished the South Fork, and I fished the main lake, and I probably hit, 30 or 40 spots throughout the day. So it was just too much time behind the steering wheel and not enough time fishing. So going into the second day, I figured, I really need to just pick a couple areas that I have a good feeling about and then just roll with those and hope that everything falls in line. I had an interview with Wild West actually the night before the tournament, and they asked me kind of, you're the home lake guy. What do you think? What's going through your head? And of course, kind of there's the thing in bass fishing, the home lake curse, which is, you know so much about your own lake that it ends up coming to kind of bite you because you know every single spot that you can catch fish. You have all these memories from all the years fishing it, like, oh, I've caught fish over there. I've caught fish doing this. So there's all that kind of racing through your mind, and you have to be able to just kind of almost shut it completely off and then go by your instinct on what's going to work for that weekend rather than trying to, make something happen that has happened in the past. The second day actually started out pretty similar to the first day. I rolled into one of my first spots. I had graphed a ton of fish all over this bank, and, I rolled in there and it was kind of going the same way. Couldn't get any bites. I finally managed to put one in the boat. And meanwhile, I'm literally watching Hayden Lee, one of the other guys in the tournament. He caught like 16.5 pounds right next to me. So, and that was in the first hour. So, that's kind of stressing me out because you're watching another one of your competitors smash them. And then I'm, sitting there not even knowing what to do almost. So kudos to Hayden, though. That was a great performance he put on in front of me. But after that, I went over to another point that I had seen the day before. I had actually marked some fish on it, got a bite, and I just decided, I'm going to go there. I saw a bunch of fish on that spot, so I'm going to go back and try to catch them. And I pulled up there with a Kitech 3.3 on an owner quarter-ounce football head and just started throwing it out over the point. And I managed to get a bite pretty quick, and then I managed to get 2 more bites off of it pretty quick. So I had, I think at that point, 4 fish in the boat. And then after that, I decided, I should probably let this area rest a little bit. I kind of beat it up in the morning for the first 2 hours, just fished it really hard. So I rolled back out to the main lake, kind of where I started the first day. And I fished some areas out there. And I think I want to say I caught 1 or 2 out on the main lake. And then I just had a gut instinct to go back to that point that I had been fishing in the morning. So I went back there and I pretty much just ground out the rest of my day sitting on one spot. And thankfully it was the right decision. I managed to catch 12 keepers that day. So it was just, the fish happened to be set up on there, and, you really just had to slow down and really work for your bites. But the fish were there if you were willing to kind of put in that work. And I will say, actually, on the way back into weigh-in on the second day, I stopped at one spot, actually the same spot that I had stopped on the first day when I caught that last-minute fish, and stopped there with like 15 minutes left to go again, threw out to the same exact spot, caught one, a keeper, so it measured, threw it in the well, and then casted back out over it, got another bite, landed it, and it was like, I mean, an eighth of an inch short of our keeper size for the apex, which is 14 inches. So sadly had to throw that one back. And at that time I was kind of figuring, you know, I had quite a few catches for that day, so I figured I was probably going to make it in, but I was also thinking, you know, I might have just thrown back a fish that if it was an eighth inch longer, it could have been the difference maker for me. So a lot of stress coming back into weigh-in that day, but I also felt really good just about a rebound performance from the first day, from, you know, 2 fish to 12 fish. You know, clearly a better day for me. So after day 2, I found out I made it into the top 10, so I pretty much went back to the house, re-rigged, got ready for the next day, which was kind of nice. I only had to rig a couple rods since I figured, you know, I was just going to stick with the same baits as the day before. So rolled back out to the lake again. Of course, there's only 10 of us fishing on the last day, so get in the water, do our morning routine, and get out to our first spots. And I rolled up to one of the spots that I started on the second morning and fished for about, you know, 30, 45 minutes, no fish in the boat yet. So I decided to go back to, you know, the bread and butter from the first day, which was that long point that I was fishing, that I'd caught a bunch of keepers off of. And my first bite off the point was a 3.5 pound largemouth. I got that fish in the boat, and you know, you're kind of thinking, when on the last day for these things, you need 5 fish, obviously, and you need 5 big bites if you're going to win. So to knock, you know, my first fish out and have it be one that I knew I didn't need to cull throughout the day was a pretty good feeling first thing in the morning. So anyways, put that fish in the well, keep fishing the same point for about 20 more minutes, and throw back out into really deep water, which I hadn't really been fishing extremely deep off this point yet, and threw out there and, you know, get the really light, just tick of a bite that I've been getting, and load up into that one. And, you know, I'm just reeling it back up to the boat, fighting it, taking my time, and it gets probably 10 or 15 feet below the boat, just, you know, too far for me to see, and it pops off. And I could tell it was a good fish. I mean, big head shakes, you know, all the telltale signs of a solid fish. And so for it to just kind of pop off randomly, I mean, there was nothing wrong. Hook was sharp, line didn't break. It was just, you know, I probably skin hooked the fish or something like that, and it finally just tore out of its mouth. But it was painful, to say the least, because when you're fishing the last day and the fishery was as tough as it was, you know that you're not going to get very many good bites like that. So at that time I had 4 fish, and it was about probably 10:30, 11 o'clock, and I decided, you know, if I want to have a shot at winning this, I obviously got to catch some bigger fish. I know those big fish live on the peninsula, so I just said, I'm going there the rest of the day, and whatever happens, happens. So rolled back out there, caught a 2.5 pounder off, you know, a rock pile that, you know, I don't even really think I had fished that much ever in my lifetime. I just, you know, happened to notice it while I was idling over to another spot. So caught like a 2.5, and then, you know, just kept fishing. So at that time I had a limit. I knew I had 2 small ones that I really needed to get rid of if I wanted a shot at winning this thing. So, you know, I rolled over to another rock pile that it was actually the spot that I started on the first morning of the tournament. Never got a bite on it the first day, but rolled back over there and, you know, kind of lined up on the rock pile and threw the Kitech out over it and was just slow rolling it across the rocks. And, you know, again, it was just that really light, just tick bite, and set into that one. And I mean, instantly I could tell it was a good fish, and get that one up to the boat. And of course, in Apex, we're not allowed to use a net, so it's a lot more, you know, nerve-wracking when your fish is coming up to the side of the boat, because it's thrashing all over the place. I'm fishing 10-pound test. I mean, of course, I got ultimate trust in my Sunline. I know it's not going to break, but it's still just terrifying that, you know, they could throw the hook out at any moment. So anyways, managed to reach down there, grab that fish. It was, you know, about a 3 1/4. So threw back a 1 pounder, put in a 3+ pounder. And at that time I'm sitting at, like, I'd say somewhere around the 14-pound mark. So I kind of thought I had a serious shot already, but I figured I needed kind of one more fish to really kind of feel comfortable going into weigh-in. And so I put that fish in the live well, fix my bait, retie, cast straight back out over the same rock pile. This is the next cast. And again, just that same little tick of a bite and set into that fish and fight it all the way back to the boat. I could tell the whole time it was a big fish. It was just kind of staying down deep. I couldn't really get her to come up, and the big head shakes, the whole 9 yards. Anyways, she finally comes up to the side of the boat, and I grabbed that fish, and I remember just grabbing it and kind of almost like throwing it into the boat, held on to it, but kind of just throw it up in, and I was sitting on my boat deck, and I literally, as soon as I got it over the gunnel, I just fell back and just laid down on my boat deck and literally just started yelling because I was so excited. Heading back to weigh in that day, it kind of all the emotions, because I knew I had a legitimate shot, but like I've already said, I'm fishing against some of the best guys on the West Coast. And one of the cool things about Apex actually is that us as competitors, we can kind of see what the scoreboard is. We use an app called TourneyX, which we upload our fish into as we catch them. But I had checked that in the morning. I had saw a couple other guys were catching some fish, but I told myself, I didn't really want to look at it at all throughout the day. So I really pretty much had no idea what anybody else had. So it's kind of a weird emotion when you're coming back in, because you're so excited because you've done well, but you're also almost terrified because you have no idea whatever anybody else, in the tournament has done. They actually kind of line us up almost depending on bag size. So when we come into weigh-in, they look at our fish, make sure we have, all our fish are alive, because that's one of the penalties in the bass tournaments is you got to bring back your fish alive. So they check those, make sure they're all alive, and then they kind of almost line us up in order of almost how the tournament's going to finish. Not really. They obviously got to add some excitement, so they kind of move people around. But I got placed, kind of towards the back, and we all kind of talk in the weigh-in line, so we kind of all know what each other have. But I knew that, Jason Austin had a pretty solid bag. I knew Marty Lawrence had a pretty solid bag, and I knew that Nick Cloutier had a good bag as well. So I really had no idea exactly what they had. I knew it was going to be close between, the four of us. But I ended up weighing in. I think I was the 8th guy to weigh in. So, took over the hot seat from Jason Austin. He had like 1380 something, I believe. And then I weighed 1616. And then next up to the scales was Nick Cloutier, and he had around 1360. And then it was just between me and one more guy, which was Marty Lawrence. He was the last guy to weigh in, so he comes up and he kind of gives his speech of how his day went. He thanks all the people he wants to thank, and then finally they just kind of say, it's time to weigh. So they bring his bag of fish up and put it on the scales, and me and him just stand side by side and we watch the scales as they finalize. And I think he ended up with around 11 and a quarter, I want to say. So kind of just watching the scales and watching it drop below what my weight was like, all the weight just off the shoulders finally, and it was like I could finally relax.
11.23 pounds. Your Apex Tour champion is Mr. Luke Johns.
I don't really remember, to be honest, much of what happened after that, because it's just kind of like goes so surreal. But I got handed the trophy, and you finally just get to do the classic, like hoist it over your head and pretty much just yell and and enjoy yourself. As soon as I won, they handed me the trophy, and I grabbed it by the handles on the side, which probably wasn't the smartest idea because they are pretty small. I think they're just more there for aesthetic purposes. But I put it over my head, and it was all going great, and I kind of shook it a little bit, and one of the handles snapped out, and so it fell from one side, but managed to catch it, and the whole crowd was like, whoa! But, almost knocked me out if it would have hit me, but we're all good. So, and then, of course, just repositioned my grip to the bottom of the trophy, which was probably a better idea in the first place. But anyways, got to re-raise it over my head and then yell again. So, yeah, so for anybody watching, I know I got a ton of texts telling me I need to work out, which I still do, but whatever. I can lift the trophy. It wasn't completely my fault. Having a tournament at your home lake is kind of special because everybody gets to show up easily. A lot of the times we're traveling really far, a couple hours car ride at least for these lakes. So to be able to be in my backyard, I got to have, my family there, mom, dad, brother, even my aunt and uncle, and I had cousins come out on the second day. And then, but on the last day, my parents showed up, my brother showed up, and then some of my friends came out as well. But it was really special because, like I had said on stage, my parents have really just been like pretty much my biggest supporters for this. Like I had said, my dad used to take me to ponds before I could drive. He would drop me off, and he'd literally just sit in the truck and let me fish for hours. And then, whenever I was done, we'd go home. And on top of that, my mom too, before I could drive again, she used to take me to all the tournaments when I used to fish as a co-angler. And, she would just go and camp and hang out in the towns or whatever while I was out fishing 2-day tournaments. And, to have a support system, not just the sponsorship side, but to have a family that really supports everything you do and believes in you, it's amazing. And then on top of that, my brother was there. I mean, he's been such a big inspiration to me. He's hardworking, and he's just, he's shown to me that, if you can kind of put your mind to something, even if it's outside the box. I mean, most people, when you tell them you want to be a professional fisherman or you're going fishing to win money or something like that, they kind of look at you sideways. So, he's always not been, the cookie cutter type. So to kind of follow his footsteps in that sense and, be a little bit outside of the box and chase something that I love, that a lot of people might not understand, was something that was really just motivating to me. The winning setup this week at Folsom Lake was, of course, the Kitech on a 1/4 ounce owner football head. It was a 3.3 inch Kitech. We offer tons of different colors. And then, of course, we offer also a couple different sizes in those owner football heads, just in case, you want to fish a little bit deeper, a little bit shallower. You might want to change your weight up a little bit. And then as far as the rod and reel went, I was actually using a Shimano X Pride with a Shimano Vanford spinning reel. And of course, actually a little bit of a deal for you guys, I was using the Shimano X Pride A series, which is the previous model. They just came out with the B, but we actually have the X Pride A's on sale right now. So if you want one of those, pick them up. I know we got just a few left, so you got to be on the ball quick. So I was throwing, a bit of a lighter setup for that because the bait was really small. So that offered me the ability to cast a lot further, and without the chances of even backlashing. So that was a huge help for my setup. And then, of course, for the line, I was fishing Sunline. I fished the Sunline FC Sniper 10-pound test, and that stuff, it was kind of the difference maker for my day. It was really abrasion resistant, so I was grinding my bait over rocks, and when I would hook up with some of those bigger fish, I got to just put a lot of trust into my line and make sure that I wasn't going to break fish off. So anyways, that's the setup, and of course everything that I mentioned is available here at Fisherman's Warehouse. So if you want it, we can ship it to your door, or come into one of the stores and one of our associates, they'll help you get checked out. Obviously, as anglers that are sponsored, our duty and our job to our sponsors is to give them kind of airtime and recognition, and put their products and services out there for the people to see. So anytime you can get up on stage, you could talk about them, it means a lot to them. So I did my best to take my time. I tried to thank everybody. I know there were some people that I missed out on thanking, but the recognition that I got from my sponsors in return was awesome. I mean, I think before I was even off the stage, Will from Buck and Bass, he texted me. I've got the guys over at Next Gen, they were, commenting, congratulating me. The guys up at CNC Marine, I actually just bought a new boat, so I'm taking that up to get rigged this week. And, I called them to confirm about that. And the first thing they're all just congratulating me on the phone. And, and then also talking to, a lot of my bait companies that I had, the guys over at Owner, they were stoked for it. They sent me an email congratulating me. Same thing, Sunline. On top of that, Picasso, they posted, some awesome stuff on their Instagram. And, and then, of course, the great people over at Yamamoto and Bill Lewis, pretty much everybody that supported me has reached out, or actually everybody that supported me has reached out to congratulate me. which was awesome. I mean, it's really cool when you can work with companies that support you, not just in, the product or the money side, the ones that really care about, how you do and kind of enjoy your victories with you. So that was really special to me to see that, they're paying attention and, that they're, happy for their anglers when they do big things. So of course, Fisherman's Warehouse was also a huge help for this event. So of course I work here at Fisherman's Warehouse. So they were, first of all, kind enough to let me have the Friday off work to come out and fish this thing. And then on top of that, they've been just a great support and a great outlet for me to go and find all the tackle needs that I have. So before the event, I know, I'm sponsored by Owner, but, every now and then I forget to place an order directly through Owner. So I have to come, out into the warehouse and grab a couple things last minute. And I actually came out and grabbed a bunch of those 1/4 ounce football heads. That was the hook or the jig head that I used to win. So, without that, it could have been a lot different outcome. And then on top of that, Kitech isn't a sponsor of me. So, of course I had to buy those through Fisherman's Warehouse. So of course, they got all the color selection that I need, which was awesome. So Fisherman's Warehouse is just, it's a great place to get all your gear. And on top of that, all the staff here is super knowledgeable. I mean, of course I'm kind of the bass guy. So, anytime I want to go fish for, ocean fishing, or, if I wanted to go striper fish or, fish for salmon, whatever there is, there's somebody at Fisherman's Warehouse who can answer all my questions. So it's just a cool outlet to be able to, go into the store or just call up one of the stores and talk about fishing and ask them, pretty much any question you can have, and they're almost guaranteed to have an answer for you. Anyways, to wrap things up, my name is Luke Johns from Fisherman's Warehouse, and I'm the 2022 Apex Pro Cup champion.